of the Vedic culture, not just for the Vaishnavas, for the entire practitioners of Sanatana Dharma, what we know as commonly as Hinduism. So Bhagavad Gita is the most important text, and Bhagavad Gita is part of the Mahabharat. So what we are looking today is specifically on the historicity of the Mahabharat. It's going to be an interdisciplinary session, so it's going to be quite intriguing and quite deep. So I would request to please be fully tuned into it. Okay, I have a presentation which is going to go really deep into the topic. So yeah, so as we start, I'm pretty sure some of you or maybe all of you have encountered such questions or challenges that Krishna is a fictional character. He never came, like especially in the context of the practitioners of Krishna consciousness, Krishna Bhakti. This argument might come up often, especially in urban areas in India, it comes to some extent. And in the West, I've heard a lot that I've been to Europe. So when I discussed with many devotees, they said that yes, many people do think that Krishna is a fictional character. He never came. So the thing is, the historicity of Krishna is of great importance. Why? Because it validates the Vedic Sanatan tradition, and it goes to show that our history is not, uh, false. It is real. Okay, so if we encounter such questions like, if Krishna is a fictional character, he never came, how are we going to answer this? So that's one thing. Imagine if somebody says Krishna is a fictional character, he never came. Or if you encounter such questions like, you know, uh, the Mahabharat never happened. It is imaginary. So this is the core topic for today. The Mahabharat, is it a myth or history? Okay, the Mahabharat never happened. It's mythology and so on. It's fictional. So that's one particular challenge or statement which we quite often hear when we are speaking about the Bhagavad Gita or speaking to people who are academically oriented. In India, we have, unfortunately, not so academic arguments being stated. For example, uh, Romila Thapa, she's a well-known historian, but unfortunately, it's commonly believed among many historians that Mahabharat is not real, and if it's real, also is just 2000 years old or 2200 years old. For example, as you can see, Romila Thapar, the famous historian, she says that Yudhishthir existed, Yudhishthir was inspired by Ashoka. Now imagine how can Yudhishthir be inspired by Ashoka? That doesn't make sense, right? Ashok could have been inspired by Yudhishthir, but not the other way around. But this was a kind of theories which was floated around in India. And as you can see, which I will also discuss in the session today, that it's believed, according to tradition and culture and almanacs and also multiple evidences, it's clear that Mahabharata happened 5,000 years ago and Yudhishthir Maharaj came 5,000 years ago. And a book called as Kunal Jatak, which is a core Buddhist text, a 2,400-year-old text, it speaks to Yudhishthir, it speaks about Yudhishthir as a son of Pandu. And Ashoka, he came after this book was written. So a book before the period of Ashok is referring to Yudhishthir. Do I make sense? A book before the period of Ashok refers to Yudhishthir. So how can Yudhishthir be inspired by Ashoka? Right? So this is the kind of things. So thousands of temples were demolished and we faced a lot of invasions, lost several universities. So a lot of invasions, and in spite of all the natural and human causes which led to destruction of many of these ancient sites and historical sites, we still have in India, and in surrounding countries, we still have hundreds of historical footprints or imprints of the Mahabharata, which can be documented, which I have indeed documented in my book, Mahabharata Myth or History. It's considered to be one of the most comprehensive, if not the most comprehensive books on the historicity of the Mahabharata. This book is called as, it's available on Amazon India. It's called as Mahabharat Myth or History. 100 plus reviews and mostly 5 star. You can look up to it when you get time. So this book basically establishes the historical authenticity of the Mahabharata. Now, as you can see from the picture here, I have gone through multiple academic disciplines like Vedic literatures, iconography, archaeology, cultural impact, petroglyphs, which are basically the cave paintings and rock art and so on. and Mahabharat kingdoms, the kingdoms of the Mahabharat, how they were authentic and historical. Jain literature, inscriptions, epigraphy is the study of inscriptions, and numismatics, which is the study of coins. Then we have Buddhist literature, we have the Tamil Sangam literature, foreign text, and so on. So all of these different academic disciplines were studied and weaved together and compiled together in this beautiful book called as Mahabharat Myth or History. So this book basically goes to show that Mahabharat is not a fictional or mythological event. It's a real history of Bharat which happened 5,000 years ago. Now, the thing is that, as you can see from this photo, this is a very famous not so famous, but well known among historians and also experts in Indian history. But this is supposed to be famous. This is a 2,300-year-old coin found in Afghanistan. And this coin, as you can see, has there are two coins basically. One coin is found in uh, Afghanistan by this was released by the king by the name Agathocles. Agathocles released these coins. And as you can see, these are two coins. These are the famous Krishna Balram coins found in Afghanistan. And can you imagine something as ancient as 2,300 years old found in Afghanistan? Important and significant, right? So this goes to show that there is historical authenticity between Krishna, the historical authenticity behind Krishna and Mahabharata. So this is leading to the session. It is not the session itself. We are going to enter into the session now. So this again, introductory data. As you can see, this is the Tikla rock art, 2,300 years old from Madhya Pradesh. In the Tikla rock art, you can see very carefully, as you can zoom in and see, this is Krishna with his chakra. As you can see here, Krishna with his chakra, and Balram with his plow, Hal. So these are 2,300-year-old paintings, rock paintings, very ancient, found in Madhya Pradesh. Beautiful cave paintings. And so these are again the earliest recorded prototype or conceptual drawings of what we know famously today as Jagannath, Baldev, Subhadra. Beautiful, right? So this is also something we will cover in the session. And these are carpets, wall carpets painted very beautifully depicting childhood leelas of Krishna. Krishna's childhood pastimes have been beautifully depicted. These are nearly 2,000 years old, found in China. So all such data has been documented in this book, Mahabharat Myth or History. So if anybody wants to understand Indian history and especially Mahabharat from a very academic and deeper point of view, this book is the way to go. So Mahabharat Myth or History has been compiled after 5 years of extensive research. It took me like more than 5 years to compile all the different data, 300 plus evidences from 1,000 plus academic citations. So today's topic is specifically going to be about the historicity of Mahabharata. So as I was introduced, I'll just quickly give a quick introduction about myself. My name is Chandru Ramesh, one of India's well-known historians. I was formerly a software engineer in HCL Technologies, and I have been for the last decade or so, for the last 10 years or so, I have been after quitting my job, I have been with my father, supporting in his business and actively researching Indian history and collecting data related to Krishna and Mahabharat and traveling all over India, Southeast Asia, and Europe, presenting about the historical authenticity of Krishna and Mahabharata. Right, so I'm also visiting faculty in many leading universities in India, like Delhi University, IIT, Indian Institute of Technology, and all these are different appreciation letters. So this is us with the UP, Uttar Pradesh State Archaeology Department. Uttar Pradesh is a state in India, if any of you might not know. A very important state, in fact, the biggest state. So this is the culture department with the Uttar Pradesh government. This is an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding with IIT Tirupati. We are working with them for developing geospatial mapping technologies to identify buried archaeological sites. And we have met with several leading politicians across India. And this is the Deputy Chief Minister of Chhattisgarh. And this is our MOU, which we signed with IIT Kanpur, which is a very old IIT and a very significant IIT in India. So we have an MOU with them as well. So I have more than 11 million views on social media with my podcast and videos and so on. So a lot of impact created in that regard. So the thing is that how old is Krishna? How old is this personality named Krishna? How old is the Mahabharat war? So we'll be going very deep into this topic. So I would request we have around I think 10 participants. So I request the participants here that please do send in your likes or smileys, and because none of you are visible here on the screen except one or two of you. So I hope you are able to see and you're able to understand and appreciate. And you can also put in your comments on the chat box. And as I get time, we can answer in the between or maybe at the end as well. So please be active. That encourages the speaker a lot that, you're all, because when we give physical lectures, we know we are able to see everyone's faces. They're all there. But here, I would request you to actively participate in terms of giving your emotions and symbols and all that. So I really appreciate that. Okay, great. So what we're doing today is going to touch a little bit about the ancientness. How old is the Vedic culture of India, and how old is uh, Vaishnavism, and how old is Mahabharat, and how old is Krishna? So this will be the specific thing which we will cover. Now watch carefully. Let's see if any of you can answer. When you see this, what do you understand? Anybody would like to answer? You can unmute yourself and or possibly I would also like to ask, we can have an interaction in between, right? Or we have to supposed to have the interaction at the end. Is that okay? We have an
Yes, yes, you can have interaction whenever you want, Prabhu.
okay, perfect. So what do you think who this person is? Anybody would like to answer? This is a coin found in Denmark. This is not here found in India. This is found in Denmark. Anybody likes to answer what this depicts?
Does that
Is
show
it
Govardhan Leela?
Sorry?
Does that show Govardhan Leela?
No, no, no. This is not gold. No, it is not Krishna as well.
is it Matsya Avatar?
No.
Okay.
It's not Indra as well.
Is it Vishnu?
Hi.
No.
Is it Balaram?
No. Very much connected to Lord Vishnu, but not Lord Vishnu himself.
Is it from Samudra Manthan, Prabhu?
No.
Is it Lord Rama?
No, 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 no. All of you are giving a good try, but it's not any of what you said, no. So I'll just one last try. If not, I'll give the answer. Anybody like to give a one last try to this?
Is it Lord Shiva?
No. Okay, so I'll answer. This is actually Lakshmi. Okay, this is Lakshmi. As you can see here, she's standing on this. This is the iconography of how elephants do Abhishek of Lakshmi, and this is depicted well across India. You can see this kind of photo is very famous, where the Abhishek of Lakshmi happens by two elephants standing on lotuses. This is very common iconography. So the entire historical studies and research, there is only one female deity who is depicted as being worshipped, or the kind of abhishek, this is done only for Lakshmi. So this is Lakshmi coins found in Denmark. Can you imagine? Right next to the United Kingdom, Lakshmi coins found in Denmark. This place is called as Gunderstrup Cauldron. If anybody goes to Denmark, is planning to go to Denmark, do let me know. I'll tell you the exact place where you need to go and see the ancient Vedic culture of India, which was practiced in Denmark more than 2000 years ago. Okay. So right in this place is called as Gunderstrup Cauldron. Gunderstrup Cauldron. Gunderstrup Cauldron has multiple of these ancient evidences. One is Lakshmi. Second, it also has documented Pashupati coins. Pashupati, right? Pashupati is the form of Lord Shiva, which is shown in Gandhashrup cauldron. Okay, so, and when we come to London, now that's interesting that we are presenting for ISKCON London today, and this is my regular session on Mahabharat myth or history, and it's such an amazing thing that we are speaking of London's history today to all of you. Now, I'm pretty sure all of you are aware of this place called as Buckingham Palace. I don't think anybody is not aware of this place. Buckingham Palace is very famous, right? It's the place where the prince, or formerly the queen, used to live, and still they are living there. The royal family lives there in the Buckingham Palace. So right next to Buckingham Palace, so this is the Buckingham Palace, and right next to it, there is this river Thames. You all must be aware of the river Thames. And near the river Thames, this is the place, it's called as London Mithrayam. Mithrayam is basically the worship of Mithra. Mithra is the sun god. Sun god worship found in London. Can you imagine? Sun god, Surya Dev, as we know in our Vedic culture, was worshipped in London 2000 years ago. Now, it's not exactly the same Surya, right, whom we, the kind of Surya which we know as in Bharat, as in India. It got transformed, the form got transformed into multiple sequences. Like first it went to the Parsi culture, and then the Greeks, the Romans, and finally, when the Romans were ruling here in London, in the United Kingdom, they worshipped Mitra, god Mitra, right? You can look up, there is a culture called as a Mithraism, Roman Mithraism, which means Romans had their own version of worshipping Mitra. And where does this word Mitra come? The most ancient reference to the word Mitra is found in our Vedic literature, in the Rig Veda, in our Vedas, Om Mitraya Namaha, which is a reference to the sun god, right? Om Mitraya Namaha. So this concept of Mitra has got transferred to multiple places all over the world, and generally Surya, sun god, was known as uh, Mitra, but he was also known by the name of Helios. The Greek culture, he was known as Helios. So as you can see the similarity in the form, can you see? There's a chariot and there are 4 horses and he's standing on top of chariot. This is the Greek Helios and this is Bharat's Vedic Surya. A lot of similarities, right? So this is the Indo-European, Indo-Aryan civilization, which had so much of similarities all over India, Europe, and the United Kingdom. So Mitra was so important. Now, this is important. You might wonder what this all has to do with Mahabharat myth or history. This is to create a background that how old is the Vedic culture of India. And then from that point onwards, we'll be leading into the Janapadas, the kingdoms of Mahabharat period. And from that point onwards, we will be leading into the actual evidences of Krishna and Mahabharat. So that's how we are going to flow into this topic. So Mitra was so important. The concept of Mitra is so ancient and so important that Mitra was very prominently worshipped by multiple ancient civilizations. So the concept of Mitra is extremely ancient and it was prevalent in the Parsi culture. Iran is now very famous in the news right now. But Iran had a lot of cultural exchanges with India, with Bharat in the ancient times. And Iran specifically adopted this worship of Mitra. In their books also, in their ancient books also, we have reference of Mitra worship and then adapted by the Greeks, the Romans, and so on. So this worship eventually spread to London. Okay, so Mithraism. The Mithraism is we'll be having in-depth session of how the Indo-European civilizations have a common thread and how they are similar and so on. We'll be having that session for London College of Vedic Studies this year. We have a plan to cover that topic. That's going to be a very exciting topic of the similarities of the Vedic culture with other ancient civilizations in Central Asia, West Asia, in Eastern Europe, Western Europe, and the United Kingdom. So we'll be covering that. But for now, this is just to give you an idea and a background of how the ancient civilizations were similar. Okay, so now this is very interesting. Now this photo is not the actual photo of the artifact. This is just depiction, but you can look up to it online. It's called as the Bogaskoy inscriptions. Bogaskoy is a 1,400-year-old inscription, Bogaskoy inscription. So in the Bogaskoy inscription, we have two kingdoms. The Hittite kingdom led by the king Sipiliu Liuma and the Mitanni king by the name Shativasa. So these two kings are doing a treaty, and in this treaty we have four Vedic gods being invoked: Indra, Mitra, Varuna, and Nasatya. So the fascinating thing is these inscriptions are dated to 1350 BC. Approximately 3,400 years ago, Indra, Mitra, Varuna, and Nasatya. Nasatya is also one of the famous Vedic gods. So, four Vedic gods being worshipped in Turkey 3,400 years ago. So, this is not a coincidence, right? That across Central Asia, West Asia, Europe, the United Kingdom, and also some traces in North Africa. So it's not a coincidence. And also, of course, we have it in China, we have it in Southeast Asia, all the way till Japan, the imprints and the impact of the Vedic culture of Bharat and Bharatiya Sanskriti, both in the form of Sanatan Dharma and also in the form of Buddhism. These two have impacted a vast region of land, right? So that's what we are trying to cover in this topic. So what happened, according to the research of this famous scholar by the name of Shrikant Talagiri? I really admire him. I mostly agree with his research, except for a few things. So Shrikant Talagiri has written a very fascinating book on the migration of. Okay, somebody seems to be scribbling on the. Can we do something about it? Because now this entire screen is. Can we erase this, or we can do something, because then it looks quite.
Can you try from your end? Can you try raising from your
Let
end?
me. Or maybe I can stop the screen sharing. Okay, it got it. Yeah. I'll just reshare the screen to make sure that okay. Is it okay now? Okay, great. Okay. So yeah. So what happened? Back to this topic. Now, this slide alone, and this slide, these two slides alone could be like a session which could go for more than 2 hours. It's really in depth about the migration of the different tribes and the different groups from India to multiple parts of the world. So the thing is that what we faced in India is the existence of many ancient Janapadas. In Bharat, this concept of Janapada was very famous, very prominent. What is Janapada? Janapada, a specific group of people where they used to walk or where they used to spread and live. Janapada. Mahajanapada means great Janapada or great kingdom. Or like, for example, when you say Yadu Janapada, it means where and all the Yadu people, the Yadu Jana would be moving around. Like if I'm an Indian, I would not be able to freely move around into Pakistan, right? Because it's not my Janapada, it's not my kingdom. I'm restricted in the boundaries of India. So similarly, a Janapada, in a very simple sense, this could go much deeper, but in a very simple sense, a Janapada means a place where people they can freely move around without having to face any kind of like restriction or being attacked and so on. So Janapada is, in a very simple term, it's a kingdom or a country with approximate boundaries. So in the ancient kingdoms, in the ancient times, we had this very famous king called as Maharaj Yayati. How many of you heard this name, Maharaj Yayati? Very famous king, very ancient king, very important and historical king by the name of Maharaj Yayati. So Maharaj Yayati, this is where the Mahabharat history starts connecting now. Now all of you can find a great interest here, that this is where traceable history can be documented going directly to the Vedic literature. So in the ancient times, as we see documented in the Vedic literature, that there were 5 prominent sons of Maharaj Yayati. Maharaj Yayati had 5 prominent sons by the name Drohyu, Anu, Puru, Yadu, and Turvasa. 5 prominent kings, 5 prominent sons. And what Maharaj Yayati did is Maharaj Yayati divided the land into different regions. Like he said, okay, Anu, he gave this land of Punjab and surrounding regions to Maharaj Anu, and his followers were known as Anava. And then Puru, primarily identifiable as the Bharata Vamsha, where the Pandavas and Kauravas belong to this. So the Puru, the followers of the Purus or the descendants of the Puru were known as Paurava. Okay, and they got this region called as Kuru, Uttar Pradesh, right? Uttar Pradesh, Delhi, and Haryana, and all these kind of regions. This came under the control of the Bharata Vamsha from Kurukshetra, including today's Delhi and all these regions. So this came under the dominion of the Puru dynasty, Paurava dynasty. And then we have the Yadu. Bhagwan Krishna, Lord Krishna connects his history. His history is connected to this particular dynasty called the Yadu dynasty, Maharaj Yadu. Krishna is also known as a Yadava, as we all know. Yadava because he belongs to the Yadu Vamsha. So Yadu Vamsha, the Maharaj Yadu was given the region of West India, like Gujarat, Sindh, Maharashtra, and so on. And the eastern region was given to Turvasa or Turvasu, and possibly he might have got even the southern region. So Turvasu got the east, and Druhyu got the Gandhar region, Gandhar, which we know today as the Kandahar. Gandhari comes from this region, right? So it is documented by Shrikant Talagiri. Shrikant Talagiri very beautifully documents in his book. He says that I mean, if you want to go really deep into the topic of migration of the different tribes and how Indian kingdoms migrated to different parts of the world, specifically Central Asia, West Asia, and Europe and United Kingdom. You got to read his book. It's fascinating books. So what he says, he gives a thorough argument by deconstructing the historical authenticity, deconstructing the connections between the Zend Avesta, which is the Parsi, the ancient books of the Parsis, the Iranians, the ancient Iranians. Then he connects that with the ancient European literature and ancient European culture. He does a comprehensive analysis, and he goes to show that in due course of time, the descendants of Nirmal ji, you can message me. I faintly remember it's Rigveda historical analysis, something like that. Exact name I'll let you know. You can message. You have my number anyway, so you can always ask me this. I'll be happy to share. Yeah. So coming back to this
Thank you.
topic. Yeah. So coming back to this topic, so Druhyus, what happened is the Druhyus, he describes how, he proves in fact that the Druhyus in due course of time were not able to sync well with the Anavas and possibly even the Pauravas. So in due course of the time, Druhyus decided to migrate far and far and far in search of lands where there are lesser conflicts, and they shifted and settled down in northern Europe, specifically around the regions of Denmark and France, and also some of them migrated to what we know today as the United Kingdom. And the Druhyus came to be known as the Druids. So this is his argument. He says the Druhyus of Gandhar were later known as Druids. Now, in many ancient books, many books related to history in the United Kingdom, it is said that the Druids came from the east. The Druids were not natives of the land belonging to, belonging to this part. Like, Druids were not part of United Kingdom, or Druids were not part of Europe. They were, in fact, from the eastern direction. They came from the east. And there were a lot of similarities between the Druhyus and the Vedic culture, right? So Druhyus, in fact, they were nature worshippers, like worshipping of Surya, Chandra, and all that. And they had a lot of similarities in worship, like the fertility goddess, the wealth goddess, like Lakshmi, Pashupati, and all that. So it clearly goes to show that it is most likely that the Druhyus had migrated far and far and far, and they settled down in northern Europe and came to be known as the classical Druids. Now, the difference between the other tribes and the Druhyus was that the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas of the Druhyus were both known as Druhyus. That was not the case with the Anus or Purus and other descendants of the respective sons of Maharaja Yati. Specifically in the case of Druhyu, the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas were both known with the same identification, and therefore a possible confusion could have been arised. Now, that's again, I'm going really deep into the topic of identification of Druhyus and Druids, but I'm creating the context of how Northern Europe and possibly United Kingdom could have been influenced by the Vedic culture, possibly by this tribe known as the Druhyos. So coming to the topic further, going deeper into this topic. So the worship of Indra was very prominent in ancient cultures, very prominent. Now, if you might be aware that even during the Govardhan Leela of Krishna, we see in the Bhagavatam that the worship of Indra was very prominent, extremely prominent. You all must be aware of this, right? Now, yeah, one thing before we continue, I recommend that you all please join the group, which is part, I mean, we have created a group. The temple has created a group specifically for this purpose of this session. So I recommend you join that. Why? Because we will be sharing all the updates about, I mean, specific materials related to this course and possibly some topics which would be helpful for you for your understanding of history, of Mahabharat's history, of Krishna's history, and all that. So if you're not joining the group, you're missing out on a lot. So make sure you join. You can always contact the temple, they'll add you to the group. So please join that group. It's extremely important to understand because in a session of 90 minutes, how much can you cover, right? So make sure you join the group at any cost. Now, coming back to this topic of Indra. So Indra was extremely important, right? Extremely important. Indra was so important that the Hittites again, as I described earlier, Indra, like let's say Inar. Eventually, multiple series of mispronunciations. Indra came to be known as Inar. So this concept of you might have heard the story of Indra dominating the dragon. There's a very famous story. I forgot this. There was a famous Asura, right? He was a devotee of Krishna. Anybody remembers? I forgot his name. Vritrasura. Yes, Vritrasura.
Vritasura.
Vritrasura. So the concept of Indra dominating Vritrasura, and Vritrasura is often depicted as a dragon or a gigantic snake. Right, so this concept of Inar dominating this giant snake or the dragon is very famous. It's very common among the Indo-Aryan cultures across, from India and all the way till Europe. It's very common. It's very prevalent. There was the famous god who used to dominate and control this snake demon or a dragon, Vritrasura. Now, of course, Vritrasura is not the same name, but Indra is very same. Now, this statue has been found in Turkey. Can anybody make a guess what the statue depicts?
A Brahmana with a shika.
Yeah, so this is found in Turkey, very ancient again. So clearly goes to show that people used to follow some resemblances of the ancient Vedic culture of India had impacted Turkey during the ancient times. Now, when we study history, we see that there was a lot of intermingling of cultures and civilizations. Like India influenced other parts of the globe, and then there were later civilizations coming from abroad and spreading their influence and also getting influenced by India. So this intercultural exchanges kept happening in the last few thousand years. So this particular kingdom, the Kushan Empire, was extremely important in the spreading of the cultures and across the Indo-European civilization. So as we can see, the Kushan kingdom had followers who practiced the Vedic culture, and they also had followers who practiced the Buddhist culture. So this particular coin, now why I'm speaking of Kushan, because I wanted to go deeper into some geographical aspects, but I think I'll keep it at the end if time permits. So now coming to this particular point, which is that when the intermingling of cultures happens, what happens is that one culture, one civilization or one kingdom or one tribe, they impact the other culture and civilization and tribe, and sometimes it is two-way. Now watch this carefully. This is a coin of Vasudev Krishna. Okay, watch very carefully. This is a Krishna coin, Krishna with his chakra, the famous chakra in his left hand, and he's holding a kamandalu on his right hand. Okay, and the dressing is completely non-Indian, if we have to call it that way. It is a Greek version. Krishna has been depicted like a Greek king. The Greeks used to dress like this 2200 years ago. So Krishna has been depicted in that way. And many times I face questions that people say, oh, no, this is not Krishna who spoke the Bhagavad Gita. This cannot be Krishna who spoke the Bhagavad Gita. This is actually a king in Afghanistan who was known by the name of Vasudev Krishna. So what's written here in the Indo-Greek script is written here Vasudeva. Vasudeva with his chakra. Now, when you see this evidence might be inconclusive to call him as Krishna who spoke the Bhagavad Gita, who is worshipped all over the world. We might say he might be the same person, he might not be the same person. Why? Because there might be some other king by the name of Vasudeva who's holding a chakra. Might be. But let's give a benefit of the doubt. But a coin found right next to this coin, this is called as Sankarshana coin. Now you see here, this is written here in Indo-Greek script, Sankarshana. Sankarshana is another name of Balramji. So Sankarshana is written here in Sankarshana, and Sankarshana is carrying two weapons. Now that's very interesting and clearly goes to establish the historical authenticity, which is that Sankrishna is carrying a plow, Hal. Balramji is known by the name of Haldhara. So he's carrying a plow, and Balramji, Sankrishna is also carrying a gada. We all know that Balramji was the guru of Duryodhan. He taught him the gada yuddha. So in that way, it's clear that these coins are Krishna Balram coins found in Afghanistan. Now, if somebody is being depicted in coins, it clearly means that they are extremely important for the people there, that they got depicted in coins. Why this is important? Because this is one of the most ancient coins. Now, when we speak of historical artifacts, archaeological evidences, and so on, generally what happens is as we go more ancient, the evidences start or the historical artifacts do not survive for a very long period of time. Maximum you might have 2000, 3000, 4000 years ago, but as you go more and more ancient, the evidences start reducing because due to natural causes and also due to human invasion, we might not have many evidences going back to maybe 7,000, 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 years remaining. It becomes more and more difficult to find. But in any case, as you can see, this is one of the most ancient coins depicting Krishna and Balram found in Afghanistan. Now, when we speak of Krishna Bhakti, now this is very interesting, especially since all of you are from the United Kingdom, you will love this particular slide, which is that when we speak of Krishna Bhakti, we generally think that Krishna Bhakti became global due to the spread of ISKCON, due to the spread of Vaishnava organizations, primarily ISKCON, right? Otherwise, I mean, we all know that that during the ancient times, Vedic culture had impacted all over the world. We all know that, but the general belief among the people is that devotees of Krishna have started popping up from all over the world, especially after the beginning of ISKCON and how ISKCON impacted all over the world. It had its temples all over the world, and therefore people from all over the world became devotees. Otherwise, we did not have this concept of non-Indian devotees before. This is a general belief among common public, but this is not the fact. The fact is that this inscription goes to show that people who spoke a very different language, who practiced a very different culture, were also devotees of Krishna. Now, this is Heliodorus pillar inscription. Heliodorus is a great devotee of Krishna, Vasudev. So he is believed. Now, again, we do not have the actual temple remaining. Generally, what happens when you have a temple, I'm not sure, I have not seen in the West specifically that people have this Garuda Stamba right opposite to the temple. Right? Some temples do have, but many don't have, which is that we have this Vishnu temple or Krishna temple, and right in the entry, we have this Garuda Stamba, which is the Garuda pillar. Right? Do I make sense? All of you are like silent here. Able to understand? Everything good? Okay, great. Because, even a nod helps me a lot to understand that, we are tuned in. Yeah, that like symbol is all good. Great. Thank you so much. Yeah. So, because it's quite an academic topic, it requires full immersion to be able to understand and grasp. So sometimes I wonder if you all are actually getting it, or if you want to understand it better, you can always ask me. So yeah, coming back to this topic, Heliodorus is one of the most ancient devotees of Krishna who was not from an Indian background. He's not from an Indian background. He spoke the Greek language. Can you imagine somebody who spoke the Greek language was a devotee of Krishna 2,300 years ago? 2,300 years ago, Heliodorus, who spoke the Greek language, he writes in this Garuda pillar, Garuda Stamba, which we also call as the Dvaja Stamba in India. So he says that this Garuda pillar of Vasudev, the god of gods, was constructed here by Heliodora, also known as Heliodorus, the Bhagavat, right? And he is the son of Dion of Takashila. Takashila, we all know, it is Takshashila. So, from Takshashila. And he has come to meet this son of the king of Kashi by the name of Bhagabhadra in his 14th regnal year. He's ruling in his 14th regnal year, and in this 14th regnal year, he's coming and meeting this king by the name of Bhagabhadra. And he clearly goes to show that during the ancient times, there was Krishna worship so prominent that people who were not from an Indian background, who were influenced and impacted so much by Krishna Bhakti, coming from far abroad, speaking the Greek language, coming here in Bharat, coming here in India and constructing a temple. It's most likely that he constructed a temple, or if there was a temple, he might have renovated it. We don't have the temple right now, but it is believed by multiple archaeologists that the temple is destroyed and it's possibly buried. But the pillar is still visible. The pillar escaped invasion. The pillar escaped invasion because it was believed that maybe the pillar is of some cultural value. I don't know what happened exactly to the temple. It's not known by anyone, in fact. But it is possible that if somebody had tried to attack that region and all that, they might have not considered the pillar to be much important and they left that pillar. And this pillar turned out to be one of the most amazing historical evidence of how old is Krishna Bhakti and how it had impacted people from a non-Indian background who spoke a language which is not from India, Greek language in fact, and he became a devotee of Krishna, right? So Greek ambassador who came from the western direction, he came to India and he possibly renovated or constructed a temple and he inscribed his name in that. So this is also a suggestion to people here, anybody who's involved in temple construction, please make sure you construct a Garuda Stamba, a Dvaja Stamba, and inscribe on it. Inscribe. This was constructed so and so year in the Kali Yuga this year. In the Vikram Samvat, it is so and so year. In the modern English calendar, it is Julius Gregorian calendar. It is this year by this famous president or prime minister. He inaugurated this temple, and along with this particular religious leader of the institution and also maybe others. So this is something which will remain forever. You might draw some kind of paintings and all that. It is not going to remain. So this is again a historical advice for those who are into temple constructions across the United Kingdom or other parts of the world. Make sure you have a Garuda Stamba and inscribe the details on it. Great. So now, again, coming to the Greek sources. Now all of you can start sensing that we are slowly entering into the history of Mahabharata and Krishna, right? Mahabharata and Krishna history, we are slowly entering into it. So these are the Greek sources. Now in the Greek sources, we have this very famous book called as, he was a Greek writer by the name of Megasthenes. How many of you have heard this person's name, Megasthenes? Any of you have heard this name, Megasthenes? I mean, you must know about him at least. That he was a extremely important character. 2,300 years ago, he came to India, right? And he wrote this book by the name of Indica. Indica was the ancient name of India, and of course, it has been mispronounced multiple times, and then it became Indica, and then further mispronunciation, it became India. So when the British ruled India, they said, we will not keep the name like Bharat or even Hindustan. We will keep India. Why? Because the Greeks gave this name and we prefer that the Greek name is given to India. Greek name is given to this land, and therefore this land came to be known as India because they preferred to keep it that way because the Greeks gave that name, and that India word is a mispronunciation of this word Indica. Now, what is Indica? Indica is basically the geography, the history, the culture. It's a very beautiful book documenting about how India used to be, how it used to look, how people used to live, and what they used to practice 2,300 years ago. So Indica, in this book Indica, he refers to three kings, three prominent kings, and these kings are Sandracotus, Sandrachitus, and Sandrames. Okay, so this king, specifically Sandracotus, is very, very famous. Anybody can make a wild guess who is Sandracotus? It is a mispronunciation of a Sanskrit name. Anybody likes to give it a try? What is Sandracotus? It's a beautiful Sanskrit name, famous king, and Megasthenes mispronounced, and it became as Sandracotus. Any guesses? Anybody would like to try?
Samudragupta?
No.
No.
You're close. You're very close.
Chandragupta.
Beautiful. Yes, Chandragupta. Krishnangi ji and Nirmal ji, both of you are correct. Yeah. So that is Chandragupta. The word Chandragupta was mispronounced as Sandracotus. Now, very interesting historical detail is that what he says, what does Megasthenes say? Megasthenes writes in his book, he says that in the land of India, Indica, okay, now we are tracing Krishna's history in his writings. Okay, so he says, in the land of Indica, there is this famous. Now, this is a rapid fire. Okay, the faster you answer, the faster we can go to the next concept. He says, in the land of Indica, there is a famous town or a city by the name of Mathura. Any guesses? What is this? What is the city?
Mathura.
Very clear, very easy, very straightforward. Great. So he says, in the land of Mathura, there is a famous river by the name of,
Yamuna.
no, he says Jobares, right? Like Ganga becomes Ganges. Now, when you ask people from India, when they go to the West, especially, you ask them, what's the most important river in India? People say Ganges. Now, what is Ganges? Ganges is basically a mispronunciation. You're supposed to say Ganga, right? So similarly, you have to say Yamuna or Jamuna. So he mispronounced. Megasthenes mispronounced, and he called it as Jobares. So in the land of Mathura, there's a river by the name of Jobares. And right on the banks of Jobares, there was a famous tribe. He said there was a famous tribe, an ancient tribe by the name of Saurosenoi. Any guesses who this tribe is?
Yadu dynasty?
Surasen?
Yeah, Surasen. Yeah.
Yeah, it is Shaurasena. Right? Shaurasena. So he says the Shaurasena tribe. He speaks of the Shaurasena tribe. He says the Shaurasenas were prominent. They're prominent in the land of Mathura, and they were worshipping this famous personality by the name of, any guesses?
Yeah. Lord Vishnu.
Imagine in Mathura, somebody is worshipping. Who would they worship?
Krishna, ideally.
Brahma?
Yeah, but he didn't mention Krishna.
The sun god?
Lord Brahma?
No,
Maybe Narayan.
no.
Mm.
He
Lord
says
Shiva.
in the land.
Lord Shiva.
No. He says in the land of Mathura, the Saurosenoi people, which is the Shurasena people, the descendants of Krishna himself, are worshipping a famous personality by the name of Dash. Any guesses?
Indra.
No.
Um,
We'll try with 2-3 people. If you like to try, then I'll give the answer.
Vishnu.
Anyone likes to try it?
Vishnu.
Christoph.
It could possibly be Krishna, but he gives a very different name.
Christoph.
That was a good try. No, it's not Christoph. Yeah, so let me give the answer. So he says, in the land of Mathura, the famous river Jobaris is flowing, and there is a tribe by the name of Sor Senoi, and they are worshipping a personality by the name of Heracles. Heracles. Anybody can you make a guess who Heracles is?
Hercules.
But why would the Yadavas, the Shurasena people, the descendants of Krishna, worship Hercules? Doesn't make sense, right?
Oh, Sankarshan, Anant Shesh.
No. Okay, let me say Heracles is basically, there are multiple theories behind Heracles, but the most logical theory is that Heracles is a mispronunciation of the word Hari Kula Isha. Hari, who is the Kula Isha of the Shurasena people, who was worshipped in the land of Mathura along the banks of the river Jobares. Okay, along the banks of the river Jobares by this tribe by the name of Sorsenoi. The Greeks had mispronounced a lot. So the most possible and logical explanation is that the word Hari Kula Isha Shurasena, Hari, who is the Kula Isha of the Shurasena people in the land of Mathura, where the river Jobares was flowing, is clearly Krishna. Now, the thing is, there is an argument which comes, oh, if this, what if this could also be the Greek god Heracles? Now, the thing is, during ancient times, there was also a Greek god by the name of Heracles. Now, that's very interesting. And that Greek god Heracles also had some similarities with Krishna. So it's most likely that when Megasthenes came to India, he saw so many similarities between the Greek Heracles and Bharatiya Hari. Right? So he thought, oh, mostly it might be our Heracles only which they are worshipping. Or the other theories is a mispronunciation of Hari Kula Isha. In any case, it clearly goes to show that Krishna worship was so prominent and so important in the land of Mathura 2300 years ago. Right? So this is another evidence which goes to show that Heracles, right? The concept of Heracles. Now I have a separate session on this, the concept of Heracles and how Hari Kula Isha and Heracles similarities, how the Greek culture was impacted by Bharat. We have a separate session for London College of Vedic Studies. So don't worry, we're going to cover it in really depth, in great depth, in the coming few months. The exact schedules we will let you know. So the thing is that Hari Kula Isha, basically Krishna, is being worshipped in the land of Mathura. Now, this is also provable because in the land of Vrindavan, we have multiple inscriptions going back to the exact period, which goes to show that Krishna was worshipped in this land during this period when Megasthenes came to India. During this exact time, worship of Krishna was very prominent in the land of Mathura. And we have absolutely no evidence of the Greek god Heracles being worshipped in Mathura during that time. Okay, so that's an interesting detail. Now, this is further justified because in the writings of Quintus Curtius, a Greek writer, Quintus Curtius, he points out that during the war between Alexander and Porus, have you heard of this war, Alexander and Porus? Alexander tried to invade India and he attacked. So when he tried to invade India and attack, so he was resisted by this king by the name of Porus, and Porus was his last enemy. After that, we don't have much records of what happened to Alexander, whether he, went back and ruled, or maybe died on the way, or killed in the battle. There are multiple theories, so we don't know exactly what exactly happened to Alexander. But the Western historians believe that he went back victoriously, whereas multiple Indian historians believe that no, he succumbed to the injuries in the battle on the way while returning back to Greece. In any case, let's see from this point of view. The point is that when when Alexander was fighting with Porus, the army of Porus is carrying the portrait of Heracles. Now, this clearly goes to show that Heracles in India is clearly Krishna. It is not the Greek god Heracles. Why? when you're fighting against the Greek army, why would you carry the photo or a portrait of a Greek god when your enemy is a Greek? Does it make sense? Alexander is a Greek king, and he is invading into India. Why would an Indian army, right, like Porus, could carry the photo of a Greek god Heracles? It makes no sense. So clearly, this goes to show that it was Hari Kula Isha Shurasena, in the line of thought that Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, wherever there is Krishna, there is victory guaranteed. So they are basically trying to indicate to the opposing army that Krishna is on our side, Hari is on our side. Don't think that you can win us. Now coming to a very interesting historical detail of the Mahabharata, which is found in the writings of Dion Chrysostom. Dion Chrysostom is an ancient Greek writer. 2000 years ago, he says that Indians had an epic. Indians had an Iliad. Know the word Iliad. Indians had an Iliad of 100,000 verses. Now, the only epic which is 100,000 verses in the whole world, it is only the Mahabharata. So, it is most likely that Dion used this word Iliad interchangeable with the word epic. Instead of saying Indians had an epic called as the Mahabharata, he says Indians had an Iliad called as Indians had an Iliad, which was 100,000 verses. Clearly goes to show that he was referring to the Mahabharata. Now, interestingly, I'm going to ask this question to you. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do put it on the comment section or unmute yourself. Do you know what is the most ancient manuscript of Mahabharata? How old it is? You know how old is the most ancient manuscript of Mahabharata? Any guesses? Any guesses? How old is the most ancient manuscript of the, what is a manuscript? We have this palm leaf manuscripts, right? How old is the most ancient manuscript of the Mahabharata? Any guesses? Anybody likes to guess? No, it cannot be 7,000. Mahabharata itself is 5,000 years old.
3,500.
No. Not 3,200.
4,500.
No. Manuscripts don't survive that long.
What about 4,500?
No, it's not 4,500.
2,000?
No,
What about 2,500?
no. Okay, so the answer is the most complete version of the Mahabharata in terms of manuscript which we have today is available in the Shantiniketan library in India, and it's merely 1,000 years old.
Oh.
Okay, 1,000 years old. Now the thing is, can a manuscript justify the date of a particular event or a personality? What do you think? Like, for example, I may not have the exact writings of Shakespeare, which was written by his own hands and possibly in a manuscript and all that. We may not have it, or the paper which he used to write his writings. We may not have that exact writing during the period of Shakespeare with us right now. I may have a book which was printed 3 years ago, which is the writings of Shakespeare. So can I say Shakespeare is during my period? Is contemporary to me? Can I say that? Does it make sense?
There may be indirect evidence supporting, like archaeology and other people.
Yeah, that we will see. See, archaeology we are going to cover. We have that in the coming. I mean, we have gone 1 hour into the session and we are just warming up. The real data is yet to come. So let's see. I mean, the London College of Vedic Studies might raise some flag. Want to complete early. So okay, great. So the thing is that manuscripts in itself do not justify the year of a particular event or a personality. Why I say that? Because the manuscripts alone cannot survive for so long. Like it cannot survive for 5,000 years for sure. So what people used to do in the ancient times, they would have an ancient manuscript, right? They would have an ancient manuscript, and they would take another manuscript, an empty one, and they will see this and they will copy it into a new one. Do you get it? I have an old manuscript, I'll see and I'll recite it, or I will see and write it down. So in that way, it was copied. The more ancient manuscripts were most likely destroyed due to natural causes or due to human causes. India has faced a lot of invasions and attacks and conflicts and so on. In any case, Mahabharat being Mahabharat is so important and so culturally significant for the entire Indian subcontinent. It had multiple copies which was spread all over the Indian subcontinent, whereas literatures which had just one copy were lost forever. Were lost forever. Why do we have Mahabharata and Ramayana today and the Vedas today? Because many of these texts were so important that they were copied across the subcontinent, and therefore, irrespective of how many ever invasions you have, how many ever attacks and conflicts you have, one or a few copies or one or two copies would always remain of these ancient texts because they were copied. Therefore, the writings of Dion Chrysostom is extremely important, where he says that the Indians had an Iliad which is 100,000 verse. Dion is dated to 2000 years ago. So can you understand that during the period of Dion, Mahabharata was so important. Mahabharata was so important that Dion says that Indians had an Iliad of 100,000 verses. Can you imagine? It was so important that he said it was so common. So definitely Mahabharata is not 2000 years old. It should be much ancient, so ancient that people during the times of Dion Chrysostom are referring to this text. It's so important and so common. Now coming to the second point, these are all travelers' accounts, foreign travelers' accounts. Periplus of the Erythraean Sea. Periplus of the Erythraean Sea is a fascinating document, a travel document. So in Periplus of the Erythraean Sea, it is given by an anonymous Greek traveler. We don't know who wrote it, but this is a very important historical document which gives about the geography of India and also other parts of the world. It gives geography very beautifully. And in the Periplus of the Erythraean Sea, the city of Dwarka is mentioned. He says, the writer said is aware of the city of Baraka. Dwarka was mispronounced as Dwaravati. Sorry, Dwarka was also known as Dwaravati, and Dwaravati was mispronounced in the Jain literature as Bharavati. Often Dwa became Ba. So Dwaraka became Baraka. Dwaravati became Bharavati. So the city of Baraka is mentioned in the ancient Greek literature, specifically in this traveler's document called as the Periplus of the Erythraean Sea, where the city of Baraka is mentioned. Greek writer Ptolemy, I'm pretty sure all of you must be aware, very famous Greek writer, right? So Ptolemy, he says, he's aware of the city of Mathura. He's aware of the city Indraprastha, which he mispronounced as Indobatra. Indobatra, something like that. And Megasthenes I already told. And apart from that, we have also this traveler by the name of Fahian, Chinese traveler. So Fahian also is aware of the city of Mathura, being a very ancient and an important city. Okay, and in the court of Akbar, we had this famous writer. By the name of Abu Fazl. Abu Fazl writes that Abu Fazl says that in the place where exactly Humayun's palace is standing right now, it is believed by the people locals that this is where Maharaj Yudhishthir used to rule 4,500 years ago. So he basically is giving a local belief that people are believing that this is the place where Maharaj Yudhishthir used to rule 4,500 years ago. But unfortunately, during the rule of the British colonial period, Indian history was aggressively discarded as mythology. It was said that, it was said that Indian history doesn't have any authentical background to it. It's all mythology, it's fictional, and so on. So this kind of, I would say, An aggressive narrative was there that, trying to discard Indian history. See, for any religion or any ancient culture, you have to see it from two perspectives. One is the faith-based part, which is the belief of a devotee or a follower that it happened this way. And another is something which you can actually prove, the pratyaksha pramana, if we have to call it from our Shastric point of view. The pratyaksha pramana is something which you can actually see, feel, experience from your senses. And there is also something which is the belief of a follower that it happened this way. Now, for example, we have in the Buddhist literature that when the Lord Buddha used to do his meditations, during one of the days, a big gigantic snake came on his head and protected him from the rains. In the Christian belief systems, it is believed that Jesus was resurrected on the third day. There are different things which are, a part of every culture and religion in ancient cultures, which is a faith-based part, which means it's a belief that it happened this way. Now, can you scientifically and theoretically, or you could say by the laws of physics, you could prove it may not be possible, right? But it is believed that Buddha came. It's everybody understands that the Buddha actually came. Everybody understands that Jesus could be a real person. So in any case, they do not doubt the authenticity of, like, the followers of Christianity do not doubt the historical authenticity of Jesus, just because there are some portions which they cannot explain scientifically. Similarly, the followers of Buddha do not discard Buddha as a mythological person just because there are some sections which they cannot explain from a scientific point of view. So you'll have to understand that when you see the history of any historical or ancient culture, you have to see from one point, which is that what aspects are provable from the pratyaksha pramana point of view. And my research is primarily from that point of view, that what actual artifacts or archaeological evidences or manuscripts or that kind of data which we can actually prove to justify the historical authenticity of the particular event in question. I hope I made sense, right? So that basically establishes the foundation of the culture or tradition which we are practicing. Now, coming back to our topic in discussion. Now, we have just started entering into the historical authenticity of Mahabharata. Can you imagine? All the discussion right now was warming up for the real thing right now. And I hope it's not too late. I mean, I'd love to hear from the host, like, I'll try to squeeze in, try to cover it, but I don't want to do injustice to the topic. I want to make sure that we go really deep into it. So when we see the ancient Indian literature, they are primarily classified into two sections. One is the Shruti part and the Smriti part. When we see the Shruti is something which is coming in terms of being heard. I hear from my guru, then I transmit to my disciple, he transmits to his disciple in a oral form. It kept, repeating in oral form, and at a certain point of time, it was written down. That is Shruti. Right? Shruti was always in Shruti, unless at a certain point of time, the practitioners of the Vedic culture chose to write it down. And we have documentation of that in the Bhagavatam as well, that why Vyasdev chose to write it down, because he understood that in Kali Yuga, people might not have such good memories. So let's and the tradition might be under attack and people might not be following actively. So let's write it down for safety. So writing tradition was introduced, and Shruti was documented. All these ancient Vedic literatures were documented, were written in a written form, were documented in written form. Like we have the Samhita, Brahmana, Aranyaka, Upanishad, Upaveda, Kalpa, Shiksha. These are all Shrutis. Then we have the Smritis, like ritual Shastra, Tantra, Pancharatra, Purana, Itihasa, Shaddarshana, and all that. So these are Smritis. So generally, from an academic point of view, many academicians believe that whatever is there in Shruti is of higher historical value than whatever is there in the Smriti. Not everyone thinks that way, but many think this way, that Shruti is of higher historical value than Smriti. Now, countering that very same argument, what I will do right now is present the historical authenticity of the Mahabharata and the Mahabharata characters from the Shruti itself, to justify that Mahabharata is not a Smriti tradition. It's not just a Smriti tradition that it was written during a later period of time and it has not much historical authenticity. It is in fact connected to the Shruti very solidly. It's very strongly anchored to the Shruti. It has its history deeply connected and intertwined with the Shruti. So that's something we are going to show today. So now, Yadus. When we speak of the ancient kingdoms in India, this particular kingdom called as Yadus were extremely important and famous. Krishna belonged to this dynasty. So you remember we covered this particular topic during the start of the session. I mean, when we discussed about the Druhyus. So Yadus were extremely important historical kingdom. There is no doubt about it that Yadus existed or did not exist. Yadus factually did exist. Yadus are actually historical personalities. We have multiple shlokas from the Rig Veda and multiple other Vedas where Yadus are described in great detail about their activities, about what they did, and so on. So Yadus were clearly historical. There's no doubt about it. And what happened during a certain period of time that Yadus had moved to Braj, Mathura region. Now, Braj is something which is so close to our heart. I mean, personally for me, because that's where I do a lot of my seva. I take people for historical tours and heritage tours. So we go to a lot of these antique villages and I take people and explain to this about Braj. So in Braj, when I did my research as well, I found that at a certain point of time, there was an abrupt end to the civilization and culture of Braj. That's at the point when the Brajvasis, headed by, specifically if I had to say the Mathuravasis, decided to move to Dwaraka. You all must be aware that Jarasandha was keeping on attacking, Mathura after Krishna killed Kamsa. Jarasandha kept on attacking as a revenge. That how you can kill my relative Kamsa, I'll take revenge. So he kept attacking. So after a certain point of time, Krishna said, enough is enough. Let's give him some happiness and satisfaction. Let's go to a new town. So the entire group of Yadavas and the Mathura Vasis, they shifted to this place known as Dwaraka. And that's where the history of Dwaraka begins. The history of Dwaraka beautifully begins at this point. So Yadav migration of Dwaraka is an extremely important historical point where the history of Dwaraka starts to begin and it also ends very quickly in 36 years. It also is connected to how Gandhari predicts that in the 36th year, I mean, you all must be aware, right? Gandhari said that, she cursed, in fact, that your entire Krishna, how you did it to my kingdom, I mean, my family, the Kurus, similarly, your family should also get destroyed. So Krishna accepted that curse. Okay, fine. So the entire Yadu dynasty gets, completes their existence on this planet. And the remaining Yadavas shifted to what we know today as Indraprastha. And Krishna's great grandson, Vajranatha, was made the king of Indraprastha, what we know today as the city of Delhi. Do you know that? That Krishna's great grandson was the king of Delhi, Indraprastha. Okay, and after a certain point of time, the Yadavas chose to migrate back to Braj, Mathura. That is why 2300 years ago, when Megasthenes comes to India, he says, in the land of Mathura, where Jobaris river is flowing, we have this Sauras people, which were basically the Yadavas. Okay, I hope I made sense. So what we have today as India today was very different in the ancient times. It was Bharat, and we have today in India by like 29 states. During the ancient times, we had something called as a Janapada or Mahajanapada, different kingdoms who used to have certain geographical rule, and they used to rule over that particular region and try to expand their land and absorb some other kingdoms and all that. So that kept happening. So now coming to the Shruti tradition, in the Vedas, specifically in the Vedas, we have mention of this Mahabharat characters like Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra is mentioned directly in the Shruti. Not in the Smriti, we know he's there in the Smriti, but he's also mentioned in the Shruti. Dhritarashtra is mentioned in the Shruti. In the Shruti tradition, specifically in the Kathaka Samhita of the Yajurveda, we have Dhritarashtra being mentioned as the son of Vichitra Virya. Now, not in Mahabharata, note that carefully. Not in Mahabharata, but in the Vedas, the Samhitas, Dhritarashtra is mentioned as the son of Vichitra Virya. How important is that? Right? The Mahabharata is the son of Vichitravirya, which is a Smriti. And in our Shruti, which is the Samhitas of the Yajurveda, we have Dhritarashtra being mentioned as the son of Vichitravirya. In the Mahabharata, we know that he is the king of the Kurus. Kathaka Samhita also says that he is the king of the Kurus. Mahabharata says that the Kurus during the time of Dhritarashtra frequently used to dominate and control the Panchala kingdom. And in the Kathaka Samhita, Dhritarashtra is mentioned as ruling both the Kurus and the Panchalas. In the Mahabharata, Dhritarashtra is called as the Bharatavamshi. He is also called as Bharata. And in the Kathaka Samhita, he is also called as the king of the Bharatas. So how many similarities? So many similarities. So these are not coincidental that somebody Dhritarashtra in the Vedas, he's also mentioned in the Mahabharata. They are so similar. They are the same persons. So basically, Mahabharat's history gets connected with the Vedic tradition, the Shruti. The Smriti gets connected with the Shruti. This is how Mahabharat's history gets a solid historical footing, by connecting the history of Mahabharata with the Shrutis. So this point is a little I would say in depth in terms of trying to understand the chronology. I've not gone much deeper, but have I made sense? Were you all able to understand so far? Please do give a like or put it on the comments. So we are 4:51 in India. I mean, I don't know how exactly. It is around 11:20, 21 in London right now. So I'll try to complete in next 15 to 20 minutes. Devapi and Shantanu are also mentioned in the Rig Veda. Now, Devapi and Shantanu, they are very important historical characters. Devapi, Shantanu. Now, there are three brothers, Devapi, Shantanu, and Bhalika. There were three brothers. Okay. And three brothers, among these three brothers, the elder one was Devapi. The second brother was Shantanu. Third brother was Bhalika. Shantanu, we all aware, right? Anybody can unmute and say who was Shantanu? Who was
Husband of
Shantanu?
Ganga and Bhishmadev's
No,
father.
whose father he was?
Bhishmadev's.
Yes, beautiful. So he's Bhishma Dev's father. Okay, and Shantanu's elder brother was Devapi, younger brother was Bahalika. Devapi had physical deformities, possibly a physical handicap. So he was forbidden or suggested not to rule. So he went to the forest and he became a sadhu. And he came back to, then we don't have much history of what happened after he goes to the forest. What happened to Devapi after he gone to the forest? We don't know. The Mahabharata and the Puranas describe of how he went to the forest. That's all it said. But after from the forest, he again comes back to the Kuru kingdom and he does a religious, I would say, sacrifice for Shantanu. And that is mentioned in the Vedas, the Rig Veda. Now, I have covered this in great depth in my book, Mahabharat Mythology, how Devapi and Shantanu of the Rig Veda are actually Devapi and Shantanu of the Mahabharata, but I'm just giving a very brief context about it because lack of time, we are not going much deeper into it. And then we have Chandogya Upanishad. Chandogya Upanishad, Devaki Putra Krishna is clearly mentioned. The only personality in the whole planet, in the whole history, who was a person named Krishna who was the son of Devaki. It is one and only the Krishna who spoke the Bhagavad Gita, whom we know. There were other Krishnas as well. There were other persons who were having this name Krishna, but whom we know as the speaker of Bhagavad Gita is also mentioned in the Chandogya Upanishad as Devaki Putra Krishna. I have given multiple other connections as to how the Chandogya Upanishad's Krishna is same as the Mahabharat Krishna and the Bhagavatam Krishna. I have justified it. But in very short, Devaki Putra Krishna. He is mentioned in the Chandogya Upanishad. And then, of course, we have in the Puranas, Bhagavata, Agni, Vayu, Padma, and all these different Puranas, we have the Mahabharata stories, the Mahabharata characters mentioned. So then we come to the Buddhist literature. Krishna is mentioned as the son of Devaki and Vasudeva in the Ghat Jataka. The Buddhist literatures are extremely important from the point of view that the Buddhist literatures have one of the most ancient references to Krishna and Mahabharata outside the Vedic tradition. Now, in the Buddhist literatures, we have the entire story of Krishna, his story in Braj, in Vrindavan, Mathura, and then how he came and killed Kamsa, then how he constructed the city of Dwaraka, which is also known as Dwaravati. So this entire story is narrated in a Buddhist literature 2300 years ago. Can you imagine how important is that? So clearly goes to show if some Buddhist literature is referring to Krishna and Mahabharata story, so definitely Krishna and Mahabharata were much important during the times when these literatures were written down. The Dhumakari Jataka, again an ancient Jataka of the Buddhist period, it also refers to the story of Dhananjaya and Vidura. Dhananjaya is Arjun and Vidura we all know. So, and then we have Yudhishthir, Bhim, Arjun, Nakul and Sahadev. These 5 Pandavas are mentioned in this literature called as Kunala Jataka. And we have also the Kuru king. We also have a reference of a Kuru king ruling over Indraprastha. It is also documented in the Dasabrahmana Jataka. And then there is a famous reference to the story of Bhishma in the 2000-year-old literature called as Buddha Charitra. So when we speak of the lineages, we'll possibly have a session separately on the history of Krishna later this year. We'll be going really deep into the lineage of Krishna, chronology of Krishna, how he, the history is traced and who came after, who was before. Then we will do, it's a very beautiful topic. How many of you would like to attend that session? Complete history of Krishna, Sri Krishna. Right? Great. So 2 of you have raised 3. Okay, great. So again, I'm saying if you're not part of the WhatsApp group, don't miss this opportunity. Join, because there we'll be sharing about multiple of these research content there. So make sure you join there. So now coming back to this topic in hand, this is the Tikla rock art. I discussed about this in the session when I began my session. If you remember, Tikla rock art is a very, very important cave painting. Rather, I would call it as a rock art. Right, the rock art of Tikla. Right. Okay, Radha Gokulananda Dasi ji, she's requesting to join in the WhatsApp group. So I would request the host kindly please help her join the WhatsApp group. Okay, great. So the Tikla rock art is 2300-year-old rock art. So in this rock art, we have the Sudarshan Chakra. Krishna is being shown with the Sudarshan Chakra, and Balramji is shown with his famous Hal. Now, can you imagine? This is the world's most ancient prototype or pilot of what we know today famously as Jagannath, Baldev, and Subhadra. Subhadra carrying her umbrella. Now, there are multiple versions. Some believe that this is not Subhadra. This is actually another famous personality by the name of Ekanamsa. But in any case, this is the world's most ancient conceptual prototype of what we know today as the Jagannath, Baldev, Subhadra worship. Can you imagine that 2300 years ago, these 3, they are famously known as the Vrishni triads. Vrishni triads, 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 Vrishni triads. The Vrishni triads were extremely important, that they were worshipped in the form of cave painting, rock arts. They were worshipped in the form of deities. This is the Vrishni triads, Krishna, Balram, and Ekanamsa or Subhadra. 2200 years old, Devgarh, Uttar Pradesh. Balram is holding his plow, Krishna holding his traditional weapon of chakra and shankha. Now we are entering Vrindavan. How many of you would love to hear about the history of Vrindavan and how it's connected to Krishna? This is from Vrindavan. This is the Moravel inscription near Vrindavan. And this inscription is the world's most ancient inscription referring to Krishna and specifically of the Vrishnikula, the Vrishni dynasty. So Moraville inscription, in this inscription is written Panchavira, and it's also written Pratima. Now Panchavira is a short version or shortened depiction of the Panchavira Vrishni. Panchavira Vrishni refers to the 5 Vrishnis. Now, when we say Pancha, generally we think that the word Pancha refers to the Pancha Pandav, the 5 Pandavas. But do we know that the Pancha concept is also very well connected with the Panchavira Vrishni? There were 5 Yadavas who were also extremely famous. Panchavira Vrishni. Okay, so these Vrishnis. Now, the question is, who are these 5 Vrishnis? This is shown in this beautiful, sculptural panel called as the Kondamattu panel. Kondamattu has this very ancient sculptural panel where these 5 Vrishnis are depicted. See how beautiful they are. The 5 Vrishnis, and in between we have Narasimha. The 5 Vrishnis, we have an inscription. We also have these statues. Now, you try to understand who these 5 Vrishnis are. We have an inscription. We also have a statue. Now, who they are? That is given in Vayu Purana. Vayu Purana says that Sankarshana, Vasudeva, Pradyumna, Samba, and Aniruddha. These 5 are the glorified as the 5 great Vrishnis. The 5 great Vrishnis, Panchavira Vrishni or Panchavira Mahavrishni, these are extremely important personalities. They were worshipped in the form of deities. They had inscriptions in their name. Literature referred to these 5 Vrishnis. And also there is a living tradition even till today. Can you imagine, in many villages in North India, the Panchavira Vrishni is still prevalent. 5 Vrishni worship is still prevalent till today. And there is an ancient village right next to Mora. This village, Mora, is right near Vrindavan. If you know this place called as Chatikara Junction, there's a junction called as Chatikara Junction when you go to Govardhan. So right next to Chatikara Junction, you can search Mora Village, Vrindavan. You will find this very famous village. So Mora Village, right next to Mora Village, there is a village called as Tosh. See, on the right side of Mora, we have Bahulavan. On the left side of Mora, we have Tosh. Bahulavan is again very important historical village. So the thing is that Tosh was so important that the reference of Tosh is found in an inscription going back to 2000 years found in Mathura. Right? Tosh is also. So the inscription found in Mathura, 2000-year-old inscription in Mathura, refers to the village of Tosh, and it says the Vrishnis were worshipped in the village of Tosh. So it is most likely that a 2000-plus-year-old temple is still buried underground around Mora and Tosh. Can you imagine that if we apply advanced mapping technologies, which we are working currently on, when we apply these advanced mapping technologies, we will be able to exactly identify these buried temples and work along with the government of India and help them, inspire them and motivate them to do the excavations. This is the possibility of this country. Right? So a lot of these ancient Leela Salis of Krishna, many of these sites referred by Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami are still buried underground and they need to be excavated. Especially in the land of Braj, in Kurukshetra, in Dwarka, these 3 primary sites. So now, when we speak of the Tamil literature also has tons of references related to Krishna, Mahabharat. I'll just go specifically to the Mahabharat part and move on because we are really going short of time. So the Mahabharat says that we all know from the Mahabharat that the 5 fought against the 100. So this is also mentioned in the 2200-year-old or maybe 2300-year-old literature called as Pedumpanatruppade. It's an ancient Tamil literature which says that the 100 were destroyed by these 5. The 5 with well-decorated chariots who never lost a war defeated the 100 in battle. A clear reference to the Mahabharat war. Then we have multiple other literary references like Panini, Patanjali, Bhasha, Sushruta, Bharata, Pancharatra. All the different literatures, they have nothing to do with Mahabharata or Krishna. Some are medical literature, some are related to dance, some are related to grammar, and some related to culture or maybe astronomy. All these different literatures refer to Mahabharata. So how can Mahabharata be mythology when it was so much prevalent and merged in the culture of India and the culture of Bharat. So it cannot be, mythology. So now, when we speak of the geography, now I'm coming to the final part of the session. When we speak of the geography of ancient India, we have the political geography and the physical geography. Political geography, countries, dynasties, cities. Physical geography, the mountains, rivers, and so on. And Mahabharat has references of the multiple Janapatas, the kingdoms or the people groups. 363 of them mentioned in Mahabharat. We are able to trace only 25% of them. 26 were on the Pandav side, 45 on the Kaurav side, 5 chose to remain neutral, and 287 we are unable to trace who they are. So the answer to many of who were there in the ancient times, like who was who during the ancient time, that can be answered and understood from this point that there is an abrupt end to Indian history. I mean, there's an abrupt end to history around the world. That's why we're not able to trace these 287 people groups. Whereas in India, we're able to trace because we have a continuous lineage like inscriptions, Buddhist religion, and later literature. So we always have something which is documented. So we're able to trace the different kingdoms of the Mahabharata period. Now we have separate in-depth course on kingdoms of Mahabharata. So anyway, I'm just giving a background. So now coming to Dwarka. What happened in Dwarka in the 1980s and 1990s is that the Government of India, specifically the National Institute of Oceanography, did a comprehensive survey of the underwater sites of Dwarka. And as you can see here, this is the small shaded portion where they did mapping and excavation underground. And this is Bet Dwarka on the top, and this is the island of Bet Dwarka, and this is a underground excavation of Bet Dwarka. So in in all these regions, critical historical artifacts were found. Now this is Dwarka. Now this is Samudra Narayan Temple. And I'm trying to complete and squeeze as much as possible. These are really exciting topics as to how Dwarka's history is so authentic and so ancient. Now watch carefully. This is the Samudra Narayan Temple. Okay, Samudra Narayan Temple. And in the Samudra Narayan Temple, which we have today, the Samudra Narayan Temple is a very important temple. It goes back to thousands of years. So what we find underground are these different numbers. I mean, different historical regions underwater in Dwarka. And this is Dwarkadish temple, which we have today. Now, the findings of Dwarka, if you could map them, it might approximately look like this. So now this is the most important, one of the most important evidences in relationship to Dwarka, which is this inscription found by this very famous historian, and I would call him as archaeologist by the name of Dr. S.R. Rao. Dr. S.R. Rao has documented in his book remains of a votive jar. There is a jar, and outside the jar, this particular inscription is carved, which is called as Maha Kachasa Apaha. In the late Indus script is written Maha Kachasa Apaha. Like for example, if you have a jar, this was a religious jar, and the jar has an inscription carved outside, which is translatable as Mahakachasa Apaha. Now, what is Mahakachasa Apaha? It is basically a prayer that, O sea God, Mahakachasa Apaha. Apaha means water. Maha, great, right? Mahakachasa Apaha. So, Dr. S.R. Rao interprets the inscription as an appeal by the offerer seeking the protection of the sea god. Who was the sea god? Varuna. And why this is important? Because Mahabharata also refers to the direction of the west as very important for Varuna. It also says that the illustrious Varuna began to duly protect seas, lakes, rivers, and other reservoirs of water. And this inscription, the Mahabharata also says, for ruling over all aquatic creatures and the protection of the water themselves, illustrious and divine Kashyapa installed Varun there as the king of this region, the western region around Dwarka. Kashyapa Muni installed Varuna worship there in the western direction. And that tradition was continued even during Mahabharata period. So much so that during the Mahabharata period, Varuna was prominently worshipped. Why? Because Dwarka was known as Vari Durga. Vari Durga means a fort or a citadel inside the water. You might be aware, right? Dwarka was an island. It was a land reclaimed from the sea. So, to protect Dwarka, it was important to pray to Varuna or the sea god that please protect us. So that tradition is also provable from the archaeological point of view. This particular inscription, very ancient inscription, proves that the tradition of Varuna worship was very prominent in Dwarka, and this is found underwater. Okay, so we have a very small section related to the potential of archaeology. So I'll just quickly touch upon it. So this is the potential of archaeology. This is the Coppergate site in the United Kingdom. As you can see here, people have been living here for more than 2000 years in a single location, right? Roman civilization 2000. These are all different layers. The 2000 layer is bottom, then 1500, 1500, 700, 100. You know, the most ancient layer is down and the most recent layer is on top. So therefore, people are living on top, on top, on top, on top of ancient civilizations, and that is precisely the reason why we are not able to find many historical cities. Why? Because we are living on top of it. Now, when you go to Vrindavan and ask people to vacate, you say, vacate, we want to do excavations. Nobody will vacate. Vrindavan is a highly commercial region today that the property prices are soaring like crazy. Same with Mathura, same with Delhi, and so on. So the thing with excavations and why we don't find many historical proofs is because we are living on top of ancient civilizations. And that is why this technology called as space archaeology will do a massive will create a massive impact, which is that over 90% of Indian heritage lies buried, and space archaeology can help unearth it. She's a very famous archaeologist by the name of Dr. Sarah Parkat. She is based in the United Kingdom. So she has identified 17 buried pyramids in Egypt, which were not previously visible. Now, this technology called as space archaeology can help identify buried pyramids. That's exactly what in our organization we are also trying to work upon. We are trying to collaborate with multiple, we are in fact trying to connect with multiple corporates and government agencies to try to bring them on board to that eventually we map the historical regions like Braj, Kurukshetra, and Dwarka and make sure that the buried sites are protected and eventually excavated and we create a complete digital record of all the historical sites in regions like Braj, regions like Dwarka, and regions like Kurukshetra. So this is our vision, what we are working for to bring out the historical evidences of Mahabharat. So seek all your blessings and seek all your support in terms of be connected with us, follow us, and follow the teachings of Mahabharata in your life, and also make sure that you defend its historicity. It's not mythology, it's not fictional, it's real, and a lot of work remaining. And I hope Krishna blesses all of us so that we bring out his history and preserve his history and for generations to come, that nobody should be able to call Mahabharata as mythology, as a complete mythology, and Krishna as a completely imaginary character. So with that, I conclude today's session and may Krishna empower us to bring out all his history, which was lost and buried in the last few thousand years. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, that was such an amazing and insightful session. I hope everyone enjoyed themselves. So if you have time, Prabhu, is it okay to take some questions if anyone have any questions?
Sure. Before we go into question, there is Radha Gokulananda Dasi. She wants to join the group. So if you can let me know
Yes,
the mail ID, I'll type it here so that she can contact you, or possibly I can give my mail
sure.
ID.
Yep, that's fine. Our email address is lcvs@iscon.london. So she can just email us on that and we'll add her on.
LCVS, London College
Yeah,
of Vedic Studies at
yeah,
ISKCON.London.
at iscon.london. Yep.
Okay, great. I have put it on the chat.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Great. Anybody has a question, please?
Yeah, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask.
Yes, please.
I can't see any hands raised. I guess everyone has understood 100% then. No one has questions. Oh, okay. If there's no other questions, then Prabhu, I understand you're really busy and we'll leave you to it. And we look forward to the next upcoming sessions with you. And yeah, and we'll leave it for there today.
Perfect. So I think I will stop the screen sharing and maybe wait for 10-15 seconds if somebody still is getting idea of any question. If not, we will conclude here.
Sure. Thank you,
Krishna.
Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I don't have any questions, but thank you so much for the session. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu, for the session. I think it was quite detailed. Of course, that's what you expect. Maybe I think so. Looking forward to the other sessions which you're planning to do, and maybe when as we go more into scriptures and stories we know from Bhagavad, Puran, and Bhagavad Gita, maybe have more questions there. But thank you very much.
We also have a session dedicated to, I mean, this is something which we can specifically do for devotees. There is one session on the history of the Bhagavatam, which is unique, that it's only done by very few people in this entire world, and I am one of them, that a comprehensive historical analysis of the Bhagavatam. So this is something which we could also possibly plan in the future.
That would be
Yes,
really good, Prabhu. Yeah, definitely.
definitely. That sounds good. Prabhu, also, could you kindly put down on the group or WhatsApp group your link where they can purchase the books that you have written?
Sure, I'll do that. Yeah,
That'll be great. Fantastic.
perfect. So shall we conclude, or if anybody has a last
Yes.
chance, if you want to ask anything, otherwise we'll conclude. Okay,
We can conclude.
we can. Perfect. Okay. Yeah, please, lead the conclusion.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much again. And just like to please unmute yourself. His Grace Chandra Ramesh Prabhu ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. If there, can we
Yes,
ask a question if the meeting is still on? Sorry about that. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, I wanted to ask about the application in on a very small scale. Application of, we are just a family living in the quite far away from London, and with our preaching efforts of book distribution. So can this, what is our, how can we apply the knowledge that you gave us today in practical terms while we preach? Is the
So are you part of the WhatsApp group?
Not as yet, but I was going to send you a request. I was a part of your WhatsApp group a long time ago.
No, not mine. I mean to say, like, I just forgot your name. If you like,
My name is Radha Gokulanand Das.
Okay, great. Yes, I remember now. No, that's your initiator name, but like.
Ritu Chaudhary, Dr. Ritu Chaudhary.
Yes, I have that name. Yes, I remember.
Lately we've been not in touch, but because of Krishnangi also, I'm revisiting our interests.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I can send you the details of, we have a preaching material, like how to use that in preaching, and how to, especially when we do book distribution and we do programs, there is a way how we use this to convince people and bring them into bhakti. So yeah, I can share that with you. Yeah.
Okay, right. Is there a scope of speaking among Hindu temples, Indian communities?
Yeah, sure.
100 to 100.
Yeah, sure. You mean to say traveling to the UK or online?
I mean, it could be either. I mean, we are trying to do book distribution among Hindu communities at the moment, which are primarily not as specifically targeted, by the rest of these scholars. I would assume, not that they're not, but like Hindus. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we can do that. I mean, we'll be more than happy to do that. Yeah.
If there is any, for example, upcoming Ram Navami, this sort of small gatherings are there. So is there something that that I mean, I'm sure you're very busy, but I will be in touch with you and ask you. Maybe in some of the places we can use the material that you would send us, and in bigger gatherings, we would ask you if you would spare some time to speak, because the younger generation, particularly you said the wider Sanatana Dharma, they need to be educated as well, isn't it?
Sure. I'll be happy to do that. You can kindly, like, we have the numbers anyway, so you can contact me on WhatsApp. So I'll help.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.